did they collect property tax for the state in '67? Did they? If they did, then we collect property and income tax in '24. We have that year's cushion to work into making the switch over to make sure we got the percentage right.
I think that's, and you can do it slowly if you want and all that. I mean, it's a Jay Nixon problem. And you know, I really can't be sure how it's gonna work out. All these economists, you know how good they are.
On the other hand, you mean?
Yeah, on the other hand, you mean that. Exactly that. I mean, so you want to have a cushion to make sure you don't have a crisis in your schools or wherever else you're gonna have. But your model is what we did with Prop 13. We did, if you can get away with it and get it passed, I do it instantaneously, the whole damn thing. I would. But if you can't do that, you do it the Fife-Symington way, slowly, surely, and it will work.
What do you have in your reserve?
800 million.
How much?
800 million at the end of this year.
800 million is reserve, and how can you go 3 months on that?
Well, it won't be zero.
Right, that's my point.
It's about $5 billion.
Not the way you think, you know.
It's about $5 billion in a year, in 2 years, in a year. So it'd be
Too much.
20%.
How about 2 months?
But that's if it was zero.
That's a lot better than zero.
No, it's not gonna be zero. It's not, you know, the number, you'll get a lot of revenue coming in. It may not be up to the there. I probably guess 800 billion your state would be.
We've got more public employees than per capita.
Oh, you're the worst. No, you are. You really are. That's because when you put in the income tax and the sales tax, guess what you did with the money?
Spent it.
You raised salaries of public employees. I think there are only 3 states have more public employees per 10,000 population than you guys do.
We have public power, but also we have the most public entities. We've got graveyard committees, we've got 4 counties, we've got NRDs, which are crowded. How do you switch over when different valuations of land, different needs, and you do a flat property tax across the state, 1%, and you do an income tax? How do you keep local control, or did the?
Now that's where that's what I wrote on your stuff.
Did the
But
state take over the entities?
No, they didn't. Jerry Brown did the really neat thing there, is he put in a subvention plan where for the near term, all we did was match the revenues of cities, counties, and local districts, including mosquito abatement districts. I mean, just pro rata, we had I forget what the number was. I think the number was something like $2.5 billion lost, static revenue loss. And then what he did was he took that and just spread it pro rata to all the other entities there. And it was disappeared within a couple. If you're gonna do that with this plan, you need to have a matching piece of legislation to match where these revenues, let's say you have a consumption tax, you need a matching piece of legislation deciding how those funds are allocated to cities, counties, and local districts by formula. So it can't be the state legislature then decides one county, it doesn't, you know, whatever. You have to have it by formula, and you have to have the formula simple and easy to understand. I don't know what it would be, but population would clearly be one variable in there. And probably income or something else, maybe square miles. There'd be a couple of other things in there, but you can't have it complicated, otherwise you become Kentucky. And then you have the highest criminal rate of any state in the nation. I mean, there are billboards all over Kentucky. If you find any public malfeasance, call this number, the FBI number in Washington. I'm serious. It's all over them. And there's nothing but corruption. Most of it's so low that it's not worth the investigation. Every city, every dippy little city in the place has an earnings tax. And they're high. But you know, the FBI is not going to go in for that one when the mayor's the barber. He is in where I've got my farms, the mayor's the barber. And you know, God knows how it, I mean, and it's just.
Do you know how much those local entities, Senator, that might have in their cash already, like NRDs? Do you know how much they're sitting on?
The problem is the difference in tax rates now and the valuations of land. Higher tax, you know, we have this mechanism where we got a valuation versus a levy to fund that school. So the levy, the next district, the valuations are higher and our levies are lower. So how do you have a flat levy and create the same wealth that fund each of those districts? Because it's a formula. It's not. There's 2 variables there, not one, not just the levy.
But you got to get rid of those 2 variables. You can't have assessments and separate payments. You have to have one tax on market values. And all you do is you go to Zillow and you plug in the address. You got that number.
But see, in our proposal, we're not gonna have any property tax.
No, I know, I'm sorry.
So here's where I'm coming from on this deal. We had the Beacon Hill do the study, we concluded that the rate would be 9.85, which included 17 billion, or it's about 1.7 billion in prebate.
I know.
So we take that out, we take the prebate out, it's about 1.2%, 1.5% lower.
Easy.
Now we're down to 8.5. Then there was a guy on a Zoom call with us last week from Tennessee that said, if you're at 9.8, and it usually costs about 30 cents for every dollar collected in a collection fee, so you take 3% off of that. If you're at 8.5, you take 3 off of that, you're at 5.5.
See, that's what the point here is, your employees. Just get down to the average of the nation and you've saved a hell of a lot of money.
So we're at 5.5, then we add back in what we've deducted for a deduction for education, and also those other exemptions that the small ones we put in place. All of a sudden, we're below 5%.
Well, you're right in that range. I mean, you really are.
But the question is, how do we sell this to the public? How do we sell this to the public in November of 22 to vote for it, when they say we're gonna put sales tax or consumption tax on food, and it's gonna be more regressive for the low-income people? How are we gonna get that past those people that think we're harming poor people?
All I can tell you is what we did in California. I don't know the political stuff and how you get it passed, although I've been through a lot of campaigns where we have gotten it passed. I just tell you that, we won the vote in California with Prop 13. Every group opposed us. Every single one. And we won the vote, only 63 or 64% of the vote. We just wiped them out. And then the voters turned. And they turned inward. And everyone who had opposed it got removed from office. It was just a massacre. Republicans and Democrats alike, they just went, this guy was against Prop 13. Whoa, Republican? And all these Republicans, no, sorry.
If you got 25%, you get 25% of your revenue, you got a quarter. You'll see your sales tax receipts come in that first quarter. And you'll see how fast it's gonna run the roll. And as for the citizen, the regular common citizen, not the guy who owns ranch ground, if you told them that they didn't have to pay real estate taxes on their house, they didn't have to rent from Nebraska anymore, you think maybe they might like that idea?
I love what you just said, by the way. I was not expecting you to say that. I'm really pleased you did. Make it all economics. I mean, you guys are master politicians, everyone is. My dentist, when he gets me on the table, then he starts drilling, he tells me about how gold is, just do the economics right. And politics will follow.
So, I'm sorry, but if you don't mind, this is where the problem becomes. In this state, we have two think tanks. One's called Open Sky, and one's called the Plaid Institute. One tends to be conservative, one tends to be rather liberal. Somehow we've got to come up with economics that nobody can argue.
Why?
Because what happens is the one or the other, doesn't matter whichever side they're on, will create doom and gloom, and the world's coming to the end. Whichever, the Plaid Institute can do it, or Open Sky can do it.
You should see what Berkeley did to me in 1978 with my stuff on Prop 13. I mean, this would be called the greatest depression that California's ever seen. People lose their homes, all the people, and then all of a sudden, whoops, we made a mistake. Duh! I mean, it ain't rocket surgery, as Larry Gatlin says.
Yes, so surgery.
It ain't rocket, it's not. If you want more of something, tax it less.
Right.
That's it. I don't give a damn what your Open Sky people say. You want to have a debate with me? I'll come down here for you. I'll take mine.
So, Mark, here's the question.
They won't debate me, by the way.
Question that came up yesterday, and this question was at the hearing, and we did pay some attention at the hearing, right? We listened to some of the questions. This was one we didn't have an answer.
Okay.
The insurance company lobby came in and testified that it would move the insurance companies that are domiciled in the state out of the state because they have a sweetheart deal here in the state of Nebraska. We have a 1% premium fee for insurance companies. We have all kinds of insurance companies domiciled here, a lot.
Including Berkshire Hathaway.
Right.
It is an insurance company. Can you believe that? You know why it is? Taxes.
Yeah. So anyway, here's our dilemma with this guy. They have a retaliatory tax in each state that they sell premiums, right? Sell insurance. So if we have a 9.8, 5.6, whatever the rate is here, they will have to, the other state will charge that premium in their state. And he said that it's going to drive the insurance companies out of the state.
Yeah, when she dies, she dies.
You know what my answer was? Sucks to be you.
Yeah, it sucks to you. Okay, mine is pretty much the same. She dies, she dies. I mean, you know,
In reality, that's not what I meant. I told him, I said, look, there are gonna be winners and losers. If you've been sucking on for a long time, you had a great deal going for a long time, that's why you're all domiciled here. You would be domiciled somewhere else if you had a better deal. You wouldn't be here because it's Nebraska. You'd be here, you went somewhere because the taxes were better. And I asked him to discover how much savings he would have, this company would have, no property tax on the facilities they own that they work in. How much income tax they're gonna save, corporate income tax, how much property tax you're gonna save on their investment that they have invested in for real estate, and all of those things. And he came back and said it was about 500 million, but he said the excess premium tax was gonna cost him $10 billion. He said they sell $134 billion worth of premiums nationwide.
And for the record, Senator Berman did meet with Robert Bell and I met with him.
Yeah, we met with the guy from the insurance company. And I understand his plight, I understand what he's saying, I get it. The point is, they've got a good deal, that's why they're here.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what we have in Tennessee, there's a company located in Tennessee that negotiated no gas tax for it. You may have heard of it, FedEx. It's the same deal. I mean, you'll have these all over the states, and you know, bottom line is there's some of them you're gonna give it to a little bit. You know, you are. You know, if you think you're gonna have purity and everything, but try to get there. Don't give up before you even start.
So here's what we do. This is what we do in Nebraska. We incentivize people to come here because we know our taxes are too high. And Senator Brony alluded to the fact that we're gonna have tax incentives that businesses have earned, income tax incentives at the end of this year, $800 million that businesses have earned but not collected. Right? We have $120 million a year that we give back to people tax incremental financing. They pay their property tax, the county takes the 1% out for collection and they send the rest of that. 120 million, that goes away, right? I'm not sure what we do with the 800 million. I don't know how you pay back somebody something they don't owe, but there's 800 million there. The revenue department will go away because all they gotta do is collect the consumption tax. So the revenue department changes. We have a thing called church debt tax incremental financing where you protest your valuation when the county doesn't do it right. That goes away. Right? All the county assessors and all their offices and everything they do goes away because we don't keep track of values.
And all the lawyers and all the accountants and all those people that, I mean, it becomes a big problem.
I'm saying it's $1.5 billion. And $1.5 billion out of a $9.7 billion budget, that's about 12%. 15%.
But can you guys, all you guys here today, you're all politicians, you're all elected, and all, I'm not all, but I mean, a lot of you were.
There's only two.
Okay, well, can you guys do it, and do it the way back when Moynihan did it? Have a bottle of scotch, just get rid of everything, and then just get the pure plan in. That's what you need. Once you start giving in a little bit to this one, all of a sudden you got your current system all back.
See, that's what the insurance company wants to do.
Of course they
Insurance
do.
companies want to put an amendment on the constitutional amendment that says they're exempt from consumption tax.
Of course they
If we do
do.
that one, then the next one will be Henry Doorly Zoo, or be somebody else that wants another exemption. And in 5 years, we'll be right in the same place we are now with the more exemptions than we have people paying taxes.
That's why I told you the story about Missouri. ever, and then the guys put it in the Constitution so they could never eliminate the exemptions they've already got. And now we sit there, and if I want to change the sales tax structure in Missouri, we've got to get a constitutional advantage. You know how difficult that is in Missouri. I mean, we got two of them in Missouri, we did two. One was we froze the taxes in Kansas City and St. Louis. And then we prohibited, we had two, Proposition A and Proposition B. Proposition A prohibited anyone else from ever putting an income tax in there except for St. Louis and Kansas City, which already have one. And then we had Proposition B, which requires Kansas City and St. Louis to have a voter approval every 5 years of the what is the earnings tax in their city. Now, they had the first 5-year one. We passed both of those propositions in Missouri. And Proposition B, damned if Kansas City and St. Louis didn't get it approved that they could keep their income tax. Okay, if they want it, let them have it.
So you looked at the senator's proposition.
You know, they gave it to me an hour and a half before I was on that Zoom call. So I have not looked at it properly. I looked at the Beacon Hill stuff a little bit. And in general terms, Beacon Hill it does something that I don't find useful, but everyone else likes it. It's a static model. The only reason you change taxes is because you change behavior. That's the only reason you do it. And they had one where the behaviors are not changed.
Yeah.
And then you have winners and losers. When you said you're going to have winners and losers, you're not. You're going to get 90 winners for 3 losers. And the 3 losers are going to be small, and the 90 winners are going to be big.
So the senator a little bit talked about getting rid of probate.
Yep.
Rebate, so you know what he's talking about when he says that.
Oh, I do.
Okay, but you also see that it's on just new purchases.
I do see that.
And the idea we're talking about, I don't want to make anybody mad saying, the idea we're talking about here is to try to lower the rate, broaden the base. So what if we broaden the base to used stuff as well, and see if we can't get that
You
rate
gotta be
cleared
very,
out?
very careful not to have taxes on taxes. A gross receipts tax is the worst thing on earth. Now, they put that in Ohio. I don't know if any of you are aware, but Ohio got rid of their business tax, but they put in a gross receipts tax, which means that all those industries that are highly atomized and have all these steps, vertically integrated businesses have much lower taxes than business there. I did the tax reform in Guam and the Northern Marianas in 1980, and all they had was this gross receipts tax, which piled on. You got to be really careful. You can only, the way I would do that, I mean, there are lots of different ways of doing it, but if you're going to have a purchase tax, okay, you do the houses. But that's not the same thing as a consumption tax. Now, that's a purchase tax. Now, a consumption tax would be what portion of that house did you use this year in depreciation and use? That's what the imputed rental value of an owner-occupied home would be your consumption tax if you really did it exactly as consumption. Now, I understand exactly what they did and why you don't have it on old houses. And what you should have, if you want to make it exactly a consumption tax, you would want to do the imputed rental value of all properties. That would be your consumption. Okay? If you live in your own home, you pay what you'd have to pay yourself in rent to live there.
Right, what I'm referring to is a used tractor or a used pickup.
But see, now tractors and pickups, let's just go on those. As long as we're gonna go conceptually exactly what he's talking about. You would take the depreciation of the equipment, that would be your consumption. That's what you take. You know, when you eat an ice cream cone, would you pay the tax on an ice cream cone? Yeah, it's consumption. Boom, there. Now let's imagine you bought an ice cream cone machine. Boy, it works 5 years. Well, you don't eat the machine in the first year. It takes 5 years, so you take 20% of its value per year would be facing the consumption tax. Now that's the absolute conceptually perfect way of doing it. Now, obviously you can't do all that. You've got to be practical somewhere. Now the tax plan I did, let me give you one I did for Jerry Brown when he ran for president. I was his economist when he ran for president in 1992 against Bill Clinton. We got rid of all federal taxes, all. Well, one exception, we didn't get rid of all of them. We kept one little group called sin taxes. We kept sin taxes because their purpose was not so much to raise revenues as it was to change behavior. You know, I jokingly said, we Americans don't like drunk people smoking while we shoot each other. That was my line back then. You know, fees and fines and other stuff like that. It's a very small portion of total federal taxes. We then got rid of all federal taxes. We got rid of all of them. No personal income tax, gone. No corporate tax, gone. No capital gains tax, no death tax. Everyone knows no payroll tax, either employer or employee. We got rid of Medicare, Medicaid tax. We got rid of excise tax. We got rid of all tariffs. We got rid of all federal taxes. And we put in their stead was 2 flat rate taxes. One on business net sales, value added, and one on personal unadjusted gross income. All right? Both of those the tax rate starting from the first dollar to the last dollar is 13%, period.
Like that.
None. No, we got rid of all that. Jerry loved it, by the way, just so you know. And we went from 8th in the race against Billy Clinton. That guy from Hokock and so on, you know, that fellow with blue eyes. You know, we couldn't stand him. But that was, we were Californians. And we went there. He went 8th in the race, down to 2nd in the race. We're coming into New York. Did I say this earlier? No, but we're coming into New York and California. We were hot on his tush. We had him really scared. We just won the primary in Connecticut. And we just won the primary in Oregon. And we had him in our crosshairs. And 2 weeks out of the out of the general election in New York, he announces Jesse Jackson is his running mate. He did not want to be president. Jerry didn't. He loved running for president, but he really didn't want to be. But that we won in a Democratic primary. Think of it. Talk about your regressive taxes. In their terms, in your big sky, what's your institute? The left institute? Open sky. They'd say, oh my God, it's regressive. The Dems love regressive taxes. And so the Republicans. People love it.
So going back to your ice cream machine, are you charging then, are you paying sales tax on the dairy product to create the ice cream in the home? Are you charging consumption tax there and then also charging consumption tax to the
You know, that's where I'm coming to this point over here. You've got to make sure that it's not layered. You know, that's why you don't have you have a final sales tax, which is called a consumption tax. A final sales tax is not a sales tax because every time a product is bought or sold, that would be a sales tax.
Right.
This is a final sales tax, which would be like your retail sales tax.
only the consumer?
Yeah, no, I don't know if you guys have this here, but I've got some big farms up in Kentucky. I have about 2,500 acres up there. And all of the diesel I use, they color pink. So I can't use it in my car because then they check, you know, so they're trying to say that's a final sales tax, that's an input, and you want to stay as far away from those problems as you can. You can't avoid all these problems, you just plain can't. But you want to make sure you stay as far away as you can from those and not have this double, triple, quadruple taxation, which was what Guam was just dead.
Should know that the federal tied to the federal food stamp system, CHIP now, that we can't charge sales tax on that, is that a state?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. But whatever it is, you should charge sales tax.
Sure. So instead
All sales,
instead of
everything.
this,
Don't.
what Senator Hruska's deal was, you're gonna give them this credit card every month, and why not say not charge sales tax on federal benefits? And then for the poor, and then on rent, say the first $200 of rent, you do not pay a consumption tax instead of these, and then you catch the poor.
One simple reason why you don't do it is then you have to have all sorts of bureaucracy to make sure that that guy really paid the rent was poor. Are you sure?
No, I mean everybody.
No, I'm joking.
For
No,
$200.
a prepaid concept, if you're going to have it, it's Milton Friedman's negative income tax, if any of you remember that. That is, but it still rewards you for not working. And it penalizes you for working. Stop already. You want to give people money, write them a damn check.
Right.
Just write them a check. Collect the money, and then you sit there and say, now, what should I spend this money on? Don't have it hidden in some sort of deduction, credit, or exclusion, or something else like that. Do it.
Yes, sir. You've been studying states for a couple of generations and seen what they've done right and they don't do anything. What do you think is going to happen to the state of Nebraska if we continue our present model?
No, there are worse states than yours.
That is very satisfying.
Well, then, do something about it. West Virginia has been in this tailspin like you've never seen. Detroit, 1950, 1.85 million people. Today, Detroit, 600,000, a little less. That's your dream. That's your kids are gonna, God, thanks, Dad. Just joking with you. My hometown, I was born in Youngstown. Youngstown had to pass a law about 6 years ago that any building that wasn't occupied for over 2 years had to be torn down and planted grass. Youngstown's gone from a steel mill to a farm. It's a catastrophe. I go to my hometown, Cleveland, you go downtown there, these guys walking around with a brown paper bag. You know, they got got out windows, the boarded buildings and all that stuff. Oh, except for, excuse me, the Cleveland Clinic. I mean, my God, it looks like a temple in the middle of the desert. Oh, and Cleveland State University. They're both 501c3s, tax exempt. Let me tell you a story. Tax exempt organizations thrive in high tax environments. Pimps and pushers are given a complete run of the mill in high tax environments. You know, and I mean that, they really are. When you have high taxes, you got all the pimps and all the pushers going around because they don't pay taxes. It's the guy who's honest. Okay, I'll pay money. You clean him out. Her out.
Churches.
Jerry Brown and I had a few exemptions, and that was one. Churches, religious organizations, and we also had renters who rented their primary residence did not have to pay tax on the rent. Because homeowners, we decided we didn't want to tax the imputed rental value of owner-occupied homes. You know, if you go to eat,
They go to
yeah, how about the football tickets at the University of Oklahoma? And you're gonna have all sorts of marginal problems there, and they're, you know. But you do have interest deductions. Let me imagine this situation with all of you. Right? Let's imagine I borrow $100,000 at 3%, and I lend $100,000 at 3%. All right? I've got zero. How much tax should I pay on that? Zero. All right? I've basically just been a conduit from a loan between X and Y, and I stood in the middle. All right? I've done nothing of any economic consequence. Okay, what you've told me is one of two things must be true. Either interest income is not taxable, or if interest income is taxable, interest expense must be deducted. That's the only way you get a zero tax on that transaction. Now let me give you the second example and see if this gives you the answer. Let's imagine I borrow $100,000 at 3% and I lend $100,000 at 6%. Have I done anything of any economic consequence? Damn right. The financial community. What you just told me with those two examples is you tax all interest income and you deduct all interest expense. Period. So interest expense, home mortgage interest, is deductible. It's also taxable to the entity that lends you the money. Now, the only thing we didn't do is we did not allow it to go to credit cards, because the interest on credit cards is not just interest, it's a huge risk premium. So, you know, when you get 12% a week, it's probably not just the T-bill rate, if you know what I mean. I'm joking with you, but so we had more renters. Rent was tax deductible to make it equal to home ownership, and we made it so that churches were not exempt. That was strictly a giveaway. That there was nothing correct about that, except we did not want them after us. And
How do we give them a deduction if we don't have anything to write off?
write them a check.
You're gonna give them a check back?
Well, if you want to.
The argument would be their patrons, their members are going to better off tax-wise, they'll be able to get one.
Yeah, that's true. And they do give more, by the way. But if you decide that there is some sort of thing about churches, don't do it in the tax code. Write them a check.
I think
And then you know where your money's going.
Jesus paid the tax.
He did.
He paid it.
Yeah. This goes to Caesar.
It's his.
It's your soul's mine.
You also took a gold coin out of a fish's mouth.
To pay the sales tax, to pay the tax.
Did you hear about Kraft Food Company, by the way? Didn't you hear that? Today they announced. You know Kraft Food Company. They announced a new facility they're building in the Middle East, in Israel. They're going to call it Cheeses of Nazareth.
There's an interesting website, it's taxpilotRates.org that I go to sometimes to check on things. And one of the interesting things that I pulled up last month as I was writing the newsletter is that the median property tax in the state of Nebraska is $2,164 per year on a home with a median value of $128,000.
Yeah.
So when you take a look at a percentage of income, 14 out of 50 population, that's 2.62%. So, if you're talking about a flat 3% tax, and I realize you're saying sort of higher and below, but if the average Nebraska is paying at least 2.62% of their
My guess that the senator's bill is gonna come out to, you'll get a good flat tax rate of about 6.5%, 7% will be about the right number. Well, if you want to do it on spending, he has a great love, and I don't have a dislike, let me tell you, I really don't, on having the consumption tax. I would not do a consumption tax if you gave me my druthers, but I would vote for it every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Okay, I would, but I'd much rather have an income tax, boom, flat, or a value-added tax. There are three ways you can do it, but I don't know why you example savings. A guy earns $100, all right? You can take that money to Vegas and carouse and gamble and drink and smoke, and you're gonna tax him on that. But if he sets it aside and buys a machine,
Well, you want to tax Warren Buffett,
but not only Warren Buffett, but
Everybody,
there's
exactly.
nothing better about consumption than investment. Let me imagine it this way, and again, forgive me for giving you this example. Let me see if I can get the example right. If you have a consumption tax,
Well, you can determine where you're going to buy.
well, but also, the only reason you ever invest is to consume at some stage in the place. And so it really is, and so what you really want to do is, I would do a value-added tax. My